Chapter 33. Hollywood-Dämmerung. By the 60s, old Hollywood had died. The battlements of those feudal fiefdoms, the studios, fell one by one to the enemy. RKO was taken over by television, with Howard Hughes, once the property was unloaded, pronouncing this obit: Hollywood is through. Fans rushed to the Fox action, Gable's bathing suits, Ty Power's sword, Who Has You Now, and the MGM auction, Judy's high-button shoes from St. Louis, Garbo's two-faced woman's ski suit. What freak fan or fanatic is wearing you at this moment, parading you up and down in front of what broken mirror of the mind? Fox's New York Street now only exists in memory. They have huffed and puffed and blown Andy Hardy's house down. And yet, Marilyn's suicide by sleeping pills in 1962 echoed the willed oblivions of so many others. Lupe, Carol Landis, Abigail Adams, Lynn Baggett, Laird Cregar, and many more. Marilyn had been out of control. Had she ever really in her life been in control? The fiefdoms had been losing hundreds of thousands of pieces of green from the tardiness, the non-appearance of their wool-headed queen. Garbo may have preferred to be alone, but she always turned up at call-sheet time, even if at dawn. Barbara Stanwyck, amenable and considerate, who could put more real meaning into one lifted eyebrow than Monroe into an entire script, got it all over within one take and zero tantrums. In 1966, an advanced case of galloping Norma Desmonditis turned up. Corinne Griffith, the famed actress who married actor Danny Scholl on Valentine's Day, 1965, asked for an annulment of the grounds that the marriage was never consummated. Frail Danny collapsed on the witness stand, but the highlight came when Corinne Griffith, who indisputably was Corinne Griffith, said that she had been merely a stand-in and had assumed the identity of Corinne Griffith when Corinne Griffith had died. In 1966, Corinne Griffith was 71 years old and her non-consummated mate 44. The stand-in said she was approximately 51. The insanity of this case, in which inveterate lying about age became destruction of identity, has never been equaled. The embodiment of goodness, Judge Hardy, that is Lewis Stone, dies from a heart attack while chasing a gang of boys through throwing rocks at his Beverly Hills home. Dazzling Jane Mansfield, her career on the skids, crashes to oblivion in June 1967 on a rain-slicked highway. Former child actors meet sticky ends. Bobby Driscoll ODs on methadone. Carl Alfalfa Switzer is shot to death in a dope burn. Montgomery Clift and Robert Walker meet self-willed ends. Ramon Navarro's ghastly death by beating in 1968 brought to mind the bizarre crimes of Hollywood's past. Here was a dying man, and as he had lived, extravagantly choked in his own blood. The lead Art Deco dildo, which Valentino had given him 45 years earlier, thrust down his throat. Two dumb beasts, hustler brothers from Chicago, Paul and Tom Ferguson, chose October 31, Halloween, to play death angels for the 69-year-old Ben-Hur. All the boys wanted was his petty cash, $5,000, which is not very petty, which they'd heard from other hustler bums that Navarro kept hidden in his Hollywood Hills home. They tore the place apart, ripping to pieces the mementos of his long career, which meant nothing to the greedy cretins. Souvenirs drenched in blood, like Lou Tellegen after his harakiri. But Dr. Cyclops' suicide in 1968 was more old Hollywood. In dying, Albert Decker decided to let it all hang out and prove that he was Mr. Kink of all time, the role he'd played in real life and the only one he believed in. For his last role, the 62-year-old character actor chose his favorite private garb, women's silk lingerie. He carefully printed in crimson lipstick on his gone-to-flab anatomy, his final notices, all of them unfavorable. Then, in delicious schadenfreude, he bound himself and managed to hang himself even as his favorite handcuffs locked in on his wrists for all time. This time, he played the game alone. In his Hollywood bathroom, he had delivered himself of his disillusionment to critic Ward Morehouse 8 years before, reflecting on his 48-year career. The theater is a horrible place in which to make a living. They sit you on the shelf for years. Then they take you off and they brush you off, and later you have and find your way back to that same shelf. These sentiments betrayed the dedication of the true bondage fan, even in regard to his profession. Decker left no messages beyond the breathtaking tableau, yet another odd still life for Dr. Noguchi's collection. George Sanders' suicide in Spain, drained of all romance, was nude, lonely, elderly, of soul. His note held the proper professional cynic's touch. It was goodbye to the sweet cesspool, life itself. He was bored with every bit of it. The '69 Tate massacre was not old Hollywood. What befell the Red House in Cielo Drive resembled the devastation caused by a jet plane crash. The bad ship Lollipop, piloted by Uncle Sugar. Charlie Manson, program puppet, Deus Ex garbage can. Wasted lives make waste, not tragedy. This was the Benedict Canyon where Paul Byrne shot himself. His noble shade now has mixed company. Judy's self-snuff took place in a locker London bathroom. MGM's Amphetamine Annie really made it last after so many attempts. pills, wrist slashing years before in her Hollywood bathroom, hack with broken glass. Dorothy died seated on the loo, but this was no over-the-rainbow trip. Oh, that's in poor taste. Fully dressed, crouched over as if in meditation, her face was a welter of blood, an Aztec mask. She was hundreds of years old, the oldest star ever, if you count emotional years, the toll they take, dramas galore for a dozen lifetimes. She was she, who had stepped into the flame once too often. They have restored the Hollywood sign, just the first 9 letters, Hollywood. They have strengthened the supporting poles and repainted the tin. By accident or design, the remaining 4 original letters, L-A-N-D, have been junked or have been rotted away. The 13th letter, the final D, is no longer there to attempt a new Peg Entwistle. New generations at Hollywood High are not even aware that the monolith on Mount Lee ever spelled anything more than the name of the smog-shrouded town which lies below, a town that today is so Miami Beach. Tacky. Outside on Gower Gulch, the tacked-on for sale sign fades. Yet sometimes, after fierce rains and winds have swept the skies clean, the Egyptian blue reappears over a still Spanish, still-palmed plain like the Cytherean Isle Catalina, discerned on the horizon on a blue ribbon. The hulking, obsolete sound stages, like secretive mastabas, picked out below. And we can imagine what drew the ambitious and reckless men here an age ago. End of reel. I just want to thank you all for listening. This is the first very lengthy VO project that I've ever completed. This is the first full book narration in VR or VO that I've ever put together. And I want to thank Kenneth Enger, rest in peace, for writing this particular book. Stay tuned for Hollywood Babylon 2, the sequel to this particular novel, which also has a very similar theme and same kind of storytelling. So if you enjoyed this, you'll enjoy this next project. I don't have that many people that are watching me right now, but I appreciate all of you who are listening, including the individual who said it's pronounced Klieg Lights. So thank you again for that. Otherwise, this story has been very, very interesting to read through. As I mentioned in previous chapters, I'm somebody that has tried to get into the industry the old-fashioned way with agents and everything else. And the reality is I couldn't cut it. And there's just, unfortunately, way too many people that are trying to get in as well. So to all of the individuals, the troubled ones, the great ones, the award winners, and the forgotten, thank you for all of the hard work and efforts you put into over the past 100 years of TV, film, stage, entertainment in any way, shape, or form. Thank you all for tuning in, and stay tuned. We will be doing Hollywood Babylon 2 very, very soon. And I also highly recommend, if you can, try to track down your own copy of Hollywood Babylon 1 and 2, because they both have awesome and very, very gruesome pictures, a variety of stars whose names you can put to faces right then and there, as well as a map of like Hollywood cemeteries and things like that. So with that said, we will go ahead and call the curtains.